Warning, the following podcast contains adult language, themes, and situations. Also, the film we're about to talk about is going to be spoiled thoroughly. Listener discretion is advised. Enjoy the show.
What happens when you take a classic story from 1843 everyone has already heard 1,000 times, pay a warehouse full of animators to painstakingly hand-draw the animation in the era of Pixar box office dominance, and toss two obnoxious mice doing their best Mr. Bean impression over half of the film? A critical and box office failure that would all but be forgotten if it wasn't for Kate Winslet temporarily flirting with pop stardom and Nicolas Cage showing up for 2 minutes to do his best impression of a British ghost with an American accent. So join us as we break down a movie you've probably never seen nor heard of, and if you have, probably don't remember. 2001's Christmas Carol, the movie.
Okay, let's run.
I'm like a prickly pear.
What do you say we cut the chit-chat?
A-hole.
Corker, how'd it get burned? How'd it get burned? How'd it get burned? Hey, have you ever been dragged to the sidewalk and being until you pissed blood?
Welcome to One Cage at a Time, the show where we break down every single Nicolas Cage movie, one film at a time. Here are your hosts, Patrick, Vince, and Nigel.
Do we really need to tell you the synopsis? It's a Christmas Carol, but mildly different than usual. This time around, Ebenezer Scrooge is even more wooden and boring than usual, but slightly younger, and is given a second chance to be with the love of his life after being visited by 3 ghosts in the night who show him his past, how he affects the people in his present, and what his life will become if he doesn't mend his ways for the 6,000th time.
It's funny, if you search this movie on IMDb, it's not even like in the top 20 Christmas Carol stories.
Yeah.
I wonder why.
Even if you put in Christmas Carol, and don't put movie, it's still like the third result.
I think if you told people, oh, Nicolas Cage is in the Christmas Carol, they'd be like, oh, you'd be like, not that one. Or that one. It's not the other 3 you're
the
thinking
Muppet
of.
one?
No.
No, not the Muppet one.
Let's meet the stars of the film.
Christmas Carol, the movie, stars 7-time Academy Award nominated actress Kate Winslet, who sang the song What If for this film, which seems to be the only thing anybody remembers from it. 2-time BAFTA nominated actor who will sadly always be remembered as the bad guy from Ace Ventura: When Nature Calls. I mean, at least to me, it's one of the greatest movies ever. Simon Cowell. Dumbledore himself.
Callow.
Simon Callow.
Not Simon Cowell.
Yeah. Simon Callow. Dumbledore himself, the second one everyone hated, not the first one that died. Legendary Irish, English, theater, and film actor Sir Michael Gambon. And of course, the only non-British actor in the cast who never even tries to do an accent despite having like 12 lines. Academy Award-winning actor and the ghostiest with the mostiest, Nicolas Kim Coppola, better known as Nicolas Cage.
It's time to go over some of the finer details.
Mend your ways. Can you try it British? Okay. Mend your ways.
Governor.
What is he? National Treasure 2 part where you just start saying things.
God, yeah.
Oh, Bob's your uncle, meat and 2 veg.
Meat and 2 veg.
Nipped off to the pub for a pint.
A bit of all right.
I would have loved to see that ghost sound like that the whole movie.
Maybe he did, and they were like, whatever voice direction this film had was like, no.
Just go back, dude.
Just do
I
your
can
normal
do
voice.
a British accent. Can you? Can you? Christmas Carol, the movie, was released September 15th, 2001 at TIFF but then got its UK release on December 7th, right in time for Christmas. Only in the UK. It went direct to video in the US. Never got a theatrical release here, which explains the fact that it costs. I did the math. What the pounds to US? It's $7.8 million was the budget. $7.8 million made $266,475. Oh. It even had like this Kate Winslet song actually charted on Billboard.
Really?
The only song in the movie.
I've never heard of it.
It seems so out of place and weird, but I guess that makes sense now.
It's strange. It doesn't fit in the movie. And even Kate Winslet was like, I don't really feel like we need to shoehorn this thing in there, but they like did it at the end after the edit. They were like, we need to put a song or something in there. So
no, they didn't.
This little song is the only thing that was like that drew people into this movie, and it still didn't make any money. Directed by Jimmy T. Murakami, who has done a few music videos. Namely, he did a David Bowie video and a Kate Bush video. Mostly known for shorts. Over the years, he's done a lot of like animated shorts and stuff, which makes sense. Actually got an Oscar nomination in 1968 for The Magic Pear Tree animated short.
Okay.
Yep. One credit, I'll point this out. He was one of the main producers of the original 1989 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles animated TV series, which is the greatest animated series of all time.
Cowabunga, dude.
Speaking as a guy who grew up right when Ninja Turtle hype was at its highest. I loved that shit.
Me too.
Also directed the Soft Landing segment in Heavy Metal. So he's got a few things that are known.
Interesting. How did he go from doing good work to this pile of shit?
How did he go from Heavy Metal to Christmas Carol, the movie? Written by Robert, I'm going to butcher this name, Llewellyn, L-L-E-W-E-W, or L-L-Y-N, Llewellyn. I think it's like, because like, yeah, Robert Llewellyn. Okay. Anyways, written by Robert Llewellyn, who is best known as Crichton on Red Dwarf. If you
no way.
ever watched Red Dwarf, it's so funny.
Side note, I was watching this on Tubi. And Red Dwarf is on Tubi. I noticed that. And I almost started watching it instead of like watching Christmas Carol, because I was like, oh man, I want some.
It's a much better show than Christmas Carol, the movie. That's for sure. Yeah, he's the robot guy, the android dude on
That's funny.
Red Dwarf. He is also in this movie as Old Joe, the guy who wanders around and does errands for Scrooge and goes yeah every time he laughs for some reason. He doesn't have a ton of writing credits outside of Red Dwarf, which is interesting, but he does have a super popular YouTube channel, podcast, website called Fully Charged, which focuses on electric vehicles, and he's doing like events with it and all sorts of stuff. They have like a conference and all sorts of things. It's kind of like focusing on sustainable electrical, products that are out on the market and stuff, and kind of.
We should say, I think his name is pronounced Llewellyn.
Llewellyn? Robert Llewellyn.
Yeah.
Like No Country for Old Men. Okay, gotcha. Mm-hmm. There's a reference that I can identify. Llewellyn, Robert Llewellyn. Anyways, he co-wrote this with Pete Croon, which is also, it's P-I-E-T, I think is like the Pete Russian version.
Yeah, probably.
Yep. Not sure how he got a writing credit on this because he was a storyboard artist. He's only been a storyboard artist throughout his career. So I guess they gave him credit for coming up with some of the story because he was like putting things together in the storyboards. I don't know.
He was like, "Hey, you should add some mice."
Add 4,000 hours of mice to this thing.
I hope whomever added those mice into this never worked a day in their life again. I hope they're a greeter at Walmart now.
They were like, "Oh man, kids are gonna hate this. It's so boring. Let's just add some animals."
Yeah.
Okay.
We're shoehorning these fucking mice.
This guy, Pete Groon, impressive list of storyboards that he's worked on, including The Iron Giant, which is classic, Shrek 2, Monsters vs. Aliens, did the first Despicable Me movie and not the 47 sequels and the money grab of the Minions after that. Rio 1 and 2, and recently did Ferdinand. Also directed the animation side of things, because usually with these animated films, there's two directors. There's one who kind of handles more of the actor side, and the other one is for the animators, like watching over the animation process and stuff. But he directed the animation for Osmosis Jones.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Also, some guy named Charles Dickens wrote part of this.
Did the heavy lifting.
He did the heavy lifting, yeah.
He wrote the fucking mice. No wonder I haven't heard of that guy.
The only thing that's not in the fucking story at all. Stupid mice. This was shot by no one. This is the first time we've ever had a episode without a DP.
Which is weird because there's a live action section.
Yeah.
There is, but I didn't see any credit for it at all.
That's weird. Not even... Interesting.
They were probably like, "No, don't associate me with that."
The guy's like, "Yeah, don't put my name on this pile of shit, please."
Did you see what the mice look like at the end? Don't associate me with this movie, please.
I want to work. I'll never work again.
Edited by Martin Brinkler, who, aside from having a name that rhymes with sprinkler, hasn't done much of note, at least that I've heard of. But the other editor, Errol Bryant, has worked in the animated department for such classic creepy-ass movies as Watership Down. Great one. Heavy Metal, The Princess and the Goblin. So he's really specialized in creepy, unsettling animation that isn't supposed to be creepy and unsettling, I think. Even in this movie, it's kind of like something's off the whole time. I don't know why. Just feels weird. And like every character looks exactly the same for some reason.
Oh my God, yeah.
They were showing pictures of Marley on the wall, and I was like, why are they showing pictures of Scrooge?
Or they had like Scrooge's nephew and Cratchit. I could not tell the two apart.
I couldn't tell the difference between them either. I was like, wait, are they trying to say that he's his nephew in this version? No, they're two different fucking people, but they look exactly
and then
the same.
after the fact, I was looking at the credits. I was like, that was Rhys Ifans or Rhys Ifans played that guy? What the fuck?
It's I think that's one of the main criticisms of this movie was that there's just like no life to the animation aside from the annoying as hell mice, who are the only ones who have any kind of like character movement and stuff. And they feel like they were, it's like Despicable Me wasn't supposed to have those minions in it. And I feel like this was the same thing where it's like, you got to put something in there for like toy distribution or something. This is a kids movie.
Kids are like your brown, joyless rendition of Christmas Carol.
Yeah,
every character just looks
dead,
like
empty
brown cutouts.
And then finally, the music was by Julian Knott, who is a British composer who is mostly known for Wallace and Gromit and Peppa Pig. The series did some of the movies as well for Wallace and Gromit. It's kind of a composer for hire. It seems like his credits are all over the place. Just kind of like whatever you need. Ratings, not surprising. This movie got a 13% on Rotten Tomatoes. 4.3 out of 10, but only 8 reviews, so it's not a big sample size, but still. 8 reviews, what's that? 1 gave it a 6 or better?
Something like that, yeah.
Audience gave it a 48%, so not much better. Usually with these animated films, they give it the benefit of the doubt of like, oh, the kids liked it, so sure, we'll give it a 60, 70%. But 48% is like everybody hated this. Even the kids are like, this is boring, mommy. Did not get a Metacritic score. This was released in Britain, so I don't know how that works with Metacritic. Didn't get a cinema score either. But it did get IMDb, of course, because everybody can contribute to that. 5.4 out of 10, which seems high. It seems high, yeah.
Way too high.
What a boring, terrible movie this is. This is one of the worst movies that we have ever done. It's hard because it's like it's animated.
Yeah.
And Cage is only in it for a couple seconds. So it's like, we're only doing it for this, so we can wear a Santa. Well, so I can wear a Santa hat.
And I can wear my unicorn Christmas
cup.
We got to do our annual Christmas episode somehow. So, Christmas Carol, here it is.
I feel that it's connected to Christmas as this version of a Christmas Carol.
I've
started to hate Christmas after this.
I'm sorry if anybody watches this on Christmas.
I'll totally be the Scrooge for this episode.
How about a Coppola quick facts?
I only have a Coppola quick facts here. Very few, because nobody has ever thought of this movie ever since it came out. Some versions of this film, I don't know which versions you saw each, but there is a live action opening and closing that was actually cut out of the film for the DVD and stuff. But it is in the special features, so you can watch it. But like, it's not in the version that I have, the live action parts, so I had to watch those separately. But I did include them in the breakdown, so we can talk about them. But yeah, some versions of the film cut out the live action scenes at the beginning and the end of the movie. I'm not really sure why. Maybe because CGI looks so goddamn terrible that they were just like,
it's a really bad first impression.
Yeah, and it's pointless. It's so fucking stupid.
Yeah,
it doesn't add anything to the film.
Welcoming you in, and
I mean, it was to give Simon Callow something else to do besides voice
Scrooge.
to be like he plays Charles Dickens.
Yeah,
do not pass go. Do not
to me, he'll always be the theater owner from Phantom of the Opera, one of the theater owners from Joel Schumacher's Phantom of the Opera, which I was looking him up, and apparently, according to Wikipedia, his birthday is June 15th, my birthday, which is behind the scenes. That's this week that we're recording this, and IMDb says his birthday is June 13th, so I'm not sure which one's correct, but either way, he has a birthday this week, so happy birthday, Simon Callow.
Happy birthday, Simon Callow.
Simon
So I thought it was kind of a funny
Cal.
coincidence.
Yeah. This film was critically panned and is largely forgotten, but Kate Winslet's song What If actually shot to number 6 in the charts in its first week and became the Christmas #1 in Ireland in 2001. And the song is still fondly remembered, and most people forget it even came from a movie. And Kate Winslet actually said that she isn't very proud of her singing in What If. She seemed like, I watched they have like a little behind the scenes, believe it or not, on the DVD, and she was just kind of like, I thought it was a gimmick and I didn't really think it was going to go anywhere. Like, even she was like, what did I sign up for? This is terrible.
I had no idea that was her. I thought the song was awful. I have no idea that people actually know this song. I'd never heard of it before.
I'd never heard of it before we did this, but the fact that, I mean, it probably charted in the UK, didn't really chart over here.
Yeah.
But,
Well, she was like still in the prime of her.
Yeah,
her
so that's probably
fame
the
at that
only
point.
reason.
yeah, this was shortly after Titanic.
I didn't even know she did a music career at all.
Yeah,
This is it.
I
That's all
had no
she
clue
did.
that was her. When it came on, I was like, what the fuck? This does not fit the movie.
They actually asked her if she would be interested in pursuing a pop career, and she's like, absolutely not.
Oh my God. They should do
You know I was in Titanic, right?
they should do a parody movie where she like where she does actually pursue a pop career instead of film.
She was amazing as a parody of herself in Extras. If you ever watched
Yeah.
I haven't seen that episode.
such a piece of shit.
The things they did in that show with the people that they got were incredible.
Extras is such a it's a fucking masterpiece. If you ever want to go back and watch something from 20 years ago, I guess. Has it been out 20 years now?
2023. Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I was in high school when that came out.
I really hate time. Time is a son of a bitch. Anyways, this movie, along with The Muppets Christmas Carol from 1992, are the only versions where the scene of the Cratchit family and Fred's party swap places. In the original story and on other film versions, the Cratchit dinner scene takes place before Fred's party. Don't understand why that's even a big deal, but it is in the story in that sequence. But if you're thinking about watching anything Christmas Carol related for Christmas this year, don't watch this movie. Go watch Muppets Christmas Carol or Scrooged. Those are my two recommendations.
Or the
Scrooged
Flintstones.
for the adults, Muppets Christmas Carol for the kids. And then final quick fact, Michael Gambon, who is the ghost of Christmas Present, who really likes it when you grab my robe, also played Scrooge in the 2010 Doctor Who Christmas special, A Christmas Carol. So, I did not know that. I guess Doctor Who was pretty big at that point, but it's funny to go from Harry Potter to Doctor Who.
I feel like Doctor Who over the years has had a lot of famous
It's true,
English
it's true.
actors
Yeah.
on there.
Yeah.
It's it's huge in England.
It is, and especially as of late, I feel like ever since what's his name, kind of revitalized the role.
David Tennant.
Yes, ever since David Tennant took over the role, and then that transition that happened afterwards, I feel like it's just been rolling ever since.
Yeah, because it was him, then Matt Smith, right? And I can't remember.
And then
I can't remember who else. But
old guy, and then a woman, and now it's David Tennant again, I think.
Is it really?
Yeah, I think there was
funny.
something about him.
We gotta revive the franchise again. Bring him back.
Yeah, he had to do he's a voice character in the Ahsoka show. That's for that robot, that droid you see in the Ahsoka trailer, which is he's actually a character he played on the Clone Wars. That droid is from the Clone Wars, but he did all of his recording for Ahsoka before anybody else did any acting because he couldn't be on set to film it because he had to go do more Doctor Who stuff.
Wow.
So it's the only
So
one
is
that
he
feels
playing
like
the
that.
same version of the Doctor, or is this like a different version?
I don't know. I haven't watched Doctor Who, so I haven't kept up with it.
I feel like Doctor Who is one of those things like you can get so deep into the lore, and I mean, it's going back to what, the 70s, 60s? Does it go all the way to the 60s?
It's gone back so far they don't even have all the episodes because the BBC taped over them because they were just programs that they were. Why would anybody archive this? It's just some kid show we're airing.
Who's ever going to watch this thing again?
Yeah.
That's kind of crazy.
It's time for the main event. Here comes the breakdown. Act 1, the setup.
Depending on what version you have, our story begins with Charles Dickens giving my cat is breaking stuff in the kitchen. He's freaking out because we have a stray cat that just lives out in the yard. And so when that cat comes by, he just flips his shit and runs around, look out the windows at him.
How does that cat have so much energy still?
I don't know. He's 13. And you couldn't tell other than he sleeps for 24 hours a day or
But that's
22
just a cat,
hours a day.
Yeah, the
cats
first
in
time I
general.
ever met that cat was when it was a baby, and it's exactly the same as it was back then. Still the same amount of energy, still ripping shit up, breaking things.
He's running around right now. All right, anyway. Depending on what version you have, our story begins with Charles Dickens giving a live reading of his story, A Christmas Carol, to a live audience somewhere in Boston, 1867. This would have been 3 years before he died at the age of 58, but they make him look 70 since life was rough back in those days. Our wholesome portrait of a post-Civil War America starts with adults-only audience enjoying a celebrated British author reading a story intended for children that is weirdly accompanied by some horribly fake-looking CGI mice. Seriously, Birdemic had better effects in this thing. It's true. Did they look awful? I don't know why they didn't just make them live action. Maybe that was, or not. I mean, yeah, they could have done that. Like, you can't find trained mice, or just made them cartoon. Like, I think it would have
leave
fit
them cartoon.
better.
I think that would have been better.
In fact, they transitioned them from cartoon to CGI in the later part, and at the end of it, it's so bizarre.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Weird choice, and like, it's not like good CGI didn't exist in 2001. So
Yeah, I mean, I know that you could tell this was a budget. I honestly didn't realize this had a theatrical release. I thought it was just some like straight to Hallmark kids special that aired.
it feels like that. But I think most of the money went to the animation and probably Kate Winslet and Nick Cage.
Yeah. It does say starring Nick Cage in the credits. Got that star power for a role you would never even know was him unless somebody told you.
Yeah.
Some dainty Boston maiden screams in terror at an obviously fake mouse, so I guess Dickens decided to add mice to his live reading because these little bastards are basically the stars of the film. We cut to Cartoon World, where we see the CGI mouse turn into a drawing, and we're escorted to freezing cold London in the 1840s. Cut to Ebenezer Scrooge calling in unpaid debts at a bank. Then to Alms Hospital for the Poor, where we see a bunch of poor, sick kids whimsically playing with a filthy street mouse. So we know they're definitely going to die. Ever heard of bubonic plague? How about hantavirus? Anything? People should not have been associating with rodents back then. We see Scrooge ignoring homeless people begging in the streets on his way to meet Old Joe, who has somehow managed to become fat in 1840s poverty-stricken England. So you know he's up to some shady business.
He's just got bad genetics, dude. Leave him alone.
Scrooge makes fun of Old Joe pretending he can read. But Old Joe says he'll get some book learning nerd to translate the chicken scratch, and we find out these are debts people owe Scrooge's business, which I think is just, he's just a moneylender. I don't know if he does anything except
I think so. Yeah. He owns their debts. So
yeah, that's it.
Like,
He
buys
buys
collections in 1840s version of collections.
We see Joe and the Fuzz rounding up people who are delinquent in their debts and toss them in prison on Christmas Eve. That'll solve it. Worked out great. Debtors' prisons. Scrooge complains about the homeless after pushing an old blind beggar out of his way and says his old dead associate Marley would say the vermin on the streets must be swept away. Speaking of vermin, this crotchety old bastard who seems to hate every living soul is overjoyed when he walks into his office without even saying hello to his assistant, Bob Cratchit, to find a mouse on his desk. For some reason, he loves these mice.
Yeah. Which is weird because like he hates everything, but he loves this mouse.
It's out of character. It's bizarre.
Yeah.
I know what you're thinking. This mouse really gets around. But no, this is a different mouse than the one eating crumbs out of a dirty shoe trying to make sure those kids don't see next Christmas. He gives the mouse a big chunk of cheese while looking at Cratchit like he's afraid he'll steal it. It's the mouse's cheese. You already had yours last week.
Paws off. Yeah, you had your cheese.
Feed him out of his hand.
Give me that, you.
We cut to Kate Winslet's character, Belle, excitedly discharging a boy named Tiny Tim out of the hospital in time for Christmas. Then the nurse in charge of making sure these kids live or die reveals a mouse in her hands. So again, safe to say all these kids are as good as dead. It's Victorian England. Everything will just kill you. Like they just, if you ever watch, there's like specials just about how like poisonous Victorian houses were. Just fucking lead in the wallpaper for some reason because it made a nice green color.
But it tasted good. So
Tasted real good.
The rat crawls all over the little boy while he giggles. Then a doctor says to make sure the boy stays warm or else he'll get his cough back. Should be easy enough. Just don't take the recently discharged from the hospital little boy on crutches out caroling in the freezing snow.
Maybe keep him in the house.
Belle and the doctor worry that they might be shut down since they have no money to pay bills, and on cue, the cops bust in and throw the doctor in jail since Scrooge has taken over ownership of their hospital debts. Meanwhile, old Joe steals some money and frightens the children while that stupid mouse gesticulates at him like Harpo Marx. Boy, these mice don't get annoying. Hope you like them.
They're over every shot for some reason.
Belle tearfully writes a letter to Ebenezer Scrooge, which reveals that she once knew him and they were close, but before she could finish, we cut to Bob Cratchit warming himself like a dirty freeloader by a fire. Belle enters and asks about Marley, while a mouse crawls all over her and another one watches on from the corner. What the hell's going on? Why are we focused on these mice rather than, A Christmas Carol? That's the story we're trying to watch. Again, it has to be something for kids to watch because
I guess
there's nothing in this movie that kids will enjoy, even the mice.
Yeah, I mean, I'm wondering if they were just like, there's no joy in this thing at all. We got to put something in there to make people happy. Maybe they just wanted it to be more for kids, and it was like the story was obviously made more adult and more bleak.
Yeah, it's a story. It's for adults. It's for middle-aged adults. Teaching people to mend their ways. Cratchit agrees to deliver her letter to Scrooge, and for some reason we spend 2 minutes watching her mouse friend run along around Scrooge's office while the other mouse watches on. Belle assures Dr. Lambert that Scrooge will remember her and will help them since they shared so much, but Lambert says he's a cold-hearted bastard now. Next, we see Scrooge push some carolers out of his way and then say humbug to his nephew, who seems to be the only person who gives a damn that Ebenezer's alive. He calls his nephew an unwanted relative after he asks Scrooge to have dinner with his family and slams the door in his face since the loser idiot got married before he was established.
It's a recurring theme in this. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You can't get married before you're rich, apparently.
Right. Yeah, according to Scrooge, yeah. Next, Scrooge dumps a bucket of water directly on Tiny Tim since he and the other carolers disturbed Scrooge yelling at Mr. Cratchit, which I think is attempted murder back then. I mean, it's already freezing out and he just throws water. It was probably from his chamber pot.
Really paints that mouse crawling around in it in a different light.
Meanwhile, Belle's mouse almost drowns in a bucket of water while trying to get Belle's letter off the floor, but is saved by Scrooge's mouse. Like these mice have a relationship too that develops.
Yeah. It's like a weird mirror. So like one of the mice is like Scrooge and the other mouse is like her, and the crotchety mouse slowly becomes more gentle as we go along as well. Why?
Yeah, I don't know why you needed that. Scrooge picks up his mouse and decides to have a little time with it back in the office. We watch the two mice squeak at each other and play charades for a bit while Belle's mouse tries to get the letter to Scrooge. Ebenezer bitches about having to pay Cratchit for sitting on his ass doing nothing on Christmas, tells him to come back extra early the day after Christmas to make up for lost time, and gets irrationally angry when Cratchit almost wishes him a Merry Christmas. Scrooge spots the two mice carrying Belle's letter like it's a stretcher and calls Cratchit a good-for-nothing since he left a letter on the floor since a mouse is tidier than him. He stashes the letter in his shirt pocket and then everything goes psychedelic. Clock starts spinning wildly, pages of books start flipping on their own, candles shoot flames. But when it ends, Scrooge thinks nothing of it and decides to head home. So I guess that was normal. Maybe he frequents the opium dens.
He's having an acid flashback.
Whoa, I should stop eating the lead paint on the wall.
Isn't it funny how everything that's ghost related is always Victorian? I always see ghosts with Victorian dress. And that's also coincidentally when ghost craze kind of became a thing.
Yeah.
It's a bunch of bored Victorians. It's just a weird. I'm sure that's not related to anything.
Suddenly, this was probably the houses settling in the freezing cold, and they were like, It must be my uncle.
Yeah. They're all dying of fever delirium.
Yeah.
Suddenly, a ghost with the voice of Nicolas Cage floats through the window, which would be scary enough, but this one has chains around him and is moaning like, well, a ghost. The ghost turns out to be Scrooge's old business partner, Marley, who warns Ebenezer that if he continues the way he is, he'll end up like him, wearing the chains of his ignorance for eternity. Scrooge argues that Jacob Marley lived his life with purpose and is a single-minded businessman, but Marley tells him he wasted his days hoarding money and only thinking about himself. While all this is going on, we're focused entirely on those goddamn mice crawling into shirt pockets since they're scared.
Goddamn mice, dude. Seriously. We get it. They're there.
Marley says he wishes he could help, but it's too late for him, but not for Ebenezer. He then warns his old business partner that he'll be haunted by 3 spirits, to which Ebenezer says he's a busy man, so 3 is going to eat up a lot of his time. It's a weird reaction.
I don't have time for 3. Can we do them all at once?
Yeah, can I? They don't even have an appointment.
It's nighttime. I want to get some rest.
Jacob tells Scrooge to grow, blossom, and share before he ends up just like him. But after watching his dead friend be pulled out of a window by a gaggle of dementors wrapped in chains, he slams the window and says he has no time for foolish delusions.
Again, it's like,
by Jove, I'm
this is a
hallucinating.
normal thing for him. Constantly tripping.
He gets a knock on the door from some dudes who just let themselves in the middle of the night. It's already nighttime. And they ask for donations to help the poor. Scrooge angrily escorts them outside and asks why the poor don't just get jobs or something. You know, pull themselves up by their bootstraps.
Reminded me
Borrow
of
money from
American
their parents.
Psycho. Why don't you get a job, Al?
The men say that many of the poor would rather die than go to a workhouse, so Scrooge says, let them die, make themselves useful by reducing the surplus population. And then they leave, and then we see one of the mice jump out the window onto Scrooge's hat and then crawl into his pocket, so he's still got both mice with him.
It's very important.
Yeah, you have to follow those mice.
It's like this whole thing is like 77 minutes, and I swear that 35 of it is these goddamn mice doing stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you're right.
Take an edit that removes all the mice and see what happens.
It'd be, 25 minutes long.
Act 2, The Conflict.
Bob Cratchit happily walks home after a busy day of helping an evil man exploit and imprison the poor, where we see that Tiny Tim is actually his kid. Guess he didn't think to look when Scrooge was chucking water at the Christmas carolers, since he does that kind of stuff all the time. Like, didn't even look. Didn't hear his own son outside. Tim has caught his death of cold, but he says they have some sugar cookies or something, so it'll be the best Christmas ever. Belle tries to comfort the dying kids in the bankrupt hospital overrun by rodents while cursing Ebenezer for locking up the only doctor who can help these poor children. Scrooge once again sees Marley in the form of a door knocker who tells him to mend your ways. Wait, mend your ways. But again, this doesn't really faze him all that much. He just kind of keeps going about his business, you know. Old Joe sneaks up on him, and Scrooge tells him to get the job done while we watch this stupid mice squeak and gesticulate for an unnecessary amount of time. Again. It's like, we're just watching 2 characters have a conversation, and we cut to the mice, like, just doing things for fucking 10 minutes, feels like, in his pocket. He doesn't feel that? We see Scrooge in his cold, empty home where he says he and Marley ran an honest business. He's like talking to himself. And it's not his fault that the world is cruel. That felt like it was an ADR like add-on because it's like, I don't know. he's like walking up the steps. We don't see his mouth moving or anything, and that line comes over the top of that. Scrooge is overjoyed to see the mouse from his office has followed him home and gives him the dinner he was eating, while the other mouse pulls Bell's letter from his jacket pocket. He slumps in his bed for a good night's rest with the flea-covered vermin, but falls asleep before he gets a chance to read the letter, while the other mouse crawls in and out of a bowl of porridge. I can't imagine why there's so much sickness going around the city. How are all these kids so sick? Can't imagine. Suddenly, a ghost with a flame for a head shows up in his room, and one of those, he's like holding one of those cheerleader megaphone things or something. I think it was like the thing that you put the candle out with. Is like, so she like puts it on
a snuffer
before she disappears. Yeah,
because she's a flame. So
it looked like one of those megaphone thingies.
Yeah.
She says she's the ghost of Christmas past, and he says he'd rather just go back to bed than hang out with the spirit. You know, that's how I'd react if a ghost with a flame for a head showed up in my room.
Turn the light out. Trying to sleep.
He falls asleep again, and then the ghost reappears next to the bed as like she turns into an old lady or something. Like she's constantly like transforming from young to old. Mm-hmm. And he just screams bloody murder when he sees her pop up. It's like the only real reaction of the whole movie for him. Oh, and of course, so do the mice. They also scream because they're integral to every moment in this film. They all float out the window, except for one mouse for some reason, to the English countryside in Ebenezer's past. We see Scrooge as a boy, where we see his parents have left him at his boarding school on Christmas. Then a few years later, where we see his sister Fran came to take him home, and he's introduced to Fran's friend, Belle. Yeah, the mouse with the nurse with the mouse fetish. So he knew her from when they were young and was actually engaged to her, as we find out. Belle was less rat-infested back when she knew Scrooge, so they quickly fall in love. We see Ebenezer's dad being a real prick to him, mirroring the way Scrooge has treated people so far in the film. His dad says they'll soon discover if he's any use to the family, since he's about to become a businessman and has to leave for London the next day to go work at Fizzywigs.
Miss Frizzle's Magic School Bus.
Which, like, what was the business that Fizzywig had? It was like a
Fezziwig. It looked like same thing, money lending or something.
Same thing, yeah. Anyways. Remember that all of these snapshots are of his Christmases. So he's had some good times throughout the years. We cut to a few years later where Ebenezer woos Belle, even though she's poor and her dad was a drunk carriage driver or whatever. We watch him dance the night away, much to the mouse in his pocket's delight. And the ghost of Christmas Past says Scrooge's old boss didn't have to throw a party, but he did in order to make the lives of his workers better. Scrooge realizes the happiness his old boss Fizziwig brought them every day was worth a fortune. So he's starting to see like, oh, maybe I should do that, or maybe I should try at all to make things better for my workers. Belle tells Ebenezer money isn't everything, since she has none, but she has him. And like she's like, I would rather sit around dreaming of you, you crotchety scumbag. He seemed like an asshole back then too. Like it doesn't seem like after this is over that Scrooge is going to be a better person. Maybe for like a week, because he seems like he was always a piece of shit. We see Ebenezer inheriting his dad's business after he died, which is also fun to think of, you know, that happening on Christmas. Because these are all supposed to be snapshots of Christmas past.
Yeah.
So he got the will read to him on Christmas.
I mean, my great grandpa died on Christmas.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, when I was like 1, I think. 1 or 2.
If you go back Christmas past, you'll get to see yourself
I'll get
at
to
one.
relive that cherished memory
cherished
in my
moment.
family.
We also see that his dad left Fran, his sister, absolutely nothing since her father never approved of her marriage, which I guess makes the whole thing with Belle make more sense. Of like, would my dad have approved of you and I being together? You're poor and I'm rich, and you'll end up inheriting half of this, or you'll end up taking half of this, or you'll end up with all of it if I die. So let's just sign this contract so you get nothing. Mm-hmm. We also find out that his sister died giving birth to Fred, the nephew we met earlier. Man, London in the 1800s. Yeah. Next, we cut to Scrooge proposing to Belle with a business contract. Basically an 1840s prenuptial agreement of some sort. And she's not a big fan, since she was hoping for him to get down on one knee or something less scummy. And Belle tells him she doesn't like the man he's become. She breaks up with him since she's afraid he'll regret being with a poor girl, and she tearfully says goodbye while older Scrooge yells at his younger self to stop her from leaving, but his younger self is just as wooden and boring as every frame of this film. Scrooge begs the ghost not to torment him any longer, and she takes him home while he bitches about making the choices he did for good reasons. Next, we see the mouse in his pocket reading Belle's letter. Mice are really good readers, everybody knows that. In the letter, Belle begs him to help her since they were once in love, but the dirty mice in his bed are interrupted by the next ghost. So they can finish reading. Scrooge wakes up to find a 9-foot-tall dude who looks like Paul Bunyan in a robe standing in his living room. I'm guessing there's nothing under that robe based on the way that he talks to Ebenezer. Come in and know me better. Scrooge is pissed that the ghost filled his house with food and made it look less drab and awful for a change. But the ghost says he's there to teach him the joy that comes from sharing. He takes off his robe, slips it to the ground, and asks if he'd like to meet his friend, Dumbledore. No, wait. This is the ghost of Christmas Present, who says he has so much to show him and to touch my robe. That's how they fly together. It's like, the robe is...
Yeah. It's like a Zelda CDI character.
It's so covered in magic that he floats afterwards.
Turns into an acid trip. Yeah.
Yeah. They fly off into a technicolored fever dream while we watch the mice for like half of the shots. Seriously, was it just cheaper to animate these damn mice or what? Scrooge, the mice, and the ghost fly over some nightmare fuel drawn with crayons for a while as the ghost makes people happy by pouring magic dust out of a gourd of some sort on them. Eventually, Scrooge takes over pouring happy glitter on everyone, and I guess he realizes how good it feels to make other people happy. This ghost of Christmas Present must be really popular at orgies.
Oh, my God.
Anyways, after 40 minutes of that crap, the ghost shows Ebenezer the consequences of his actions and how people actually feel about him. First, we see his nephew playing a guessing game, and when Fred describes a monster, someone guesses it's Uncle Scrooge. Fred says his uncle is a mean old so-and-so, but he's the only family he's got, so he'll never stop trying to include him in his life. They all say Scrooge is a tight-fisted scumbag who will take his money to the grave, and Scrooge is shocked that people think that way about him, even though every second of this film he's shown himself to be exactly that. He complains that he keeps to himself for just this reason, since people can't understand him because he doesn't squander his money on useless crap like other people and such. Next, we see old Joe taking poor people's belongings on Christmas to pay the debts owed to Scrooge. And Ebenezer says the ghost doesn't understand since he's not a businessman. Are you even in business? Fucking old Joe's laugh. We see the Cratchits making the most of their fun little poverty Christmas, while Tiny Tim breathes what will probably be his last good breaths of air. Tim's dad says, "Cough it up, Tim. It might be a gold watch," as his son open mouth coughs all over the dinner table they're about to eat at. Bob salutes his family one by one and gives thanks to Ebenezer Scrooge for putting food on the table. His son just coughed all over, and his family is disgusted he even used Scrooge's name since he gave Tiny Tim pneumonia, which is basically a death sentence. Cratchit defends Scrooge, saying he's kept him employed for 14 years, and it's not a big deal that he killed his child.
Trickle-down economics. Cheer.
Trickle-down.
I have to explain this again.
That's the thing. That's
I'll be
what
rich
Scrooge
someday.
yelled
I
as he was
swear.
dumping the water on him.
Tiny Tim says, "Let our love eat away at his unjust soul." Because that's how kids talked back then. Now Tim would say, "On God, that sus bougie old head ain't living rent-free in our head as the main character, for real, for real." Scrooge begs to know if the poor kid he's 100% responsible for giving pneumonia will live, and the ghost says, "What's it to you? Let him die and decrease the surplus population." That's cold, man.
That's out of pocket.
I love that line. That's out of pocket. Scrooge wants to know what will happen in the future, but the ghost says he only knows the present and disappears.
Yeah, I think Scrooge is just suffering from ergot poisoning. Just hallucinating all this shit.
Yeah, that would explain a lot.
He would eat moldy bread. Wouldn't go buy some new stuff. He just eat what he's got, even if it's moldy and gross.
Yeah. Turns out the mice aren't actually there. Both he and Belle are just tripping because of the fucking horrible conditions of everything.
Act 3, The Resolution.
We see a black hand appear from some clouds, and it grabs Scrooge's hand. The Grim Reaper-looking ghost of Christmas future shows the Cratchit family crying at the dinner table about Tiny Tim's death. They all break down, remembering how much he loved Christmas, and Scrooge is devastated. And so are the mice in his pocket because, they're ever constant, ever present, even in Scrooge's worst nightmares. Next, Scrooge watches as people around London celebrate a happier and more just world. Then to Scrooge's associates talking about how Scrooge was found after being dead for 3 days, and it's a good thing it was cold, or he'd have stunk to high heaven. They all laugh about no one caring that Scrooge died since there wasn't a soul left who gave a damn about him, to the point that no one even checked to see if he was alive after being missing for 3 days. Scrooge sees his lifeless body under a sheet in his bed while his associates haggle over his belongings and say he was too selfish to even share a disease if he had one.
Oh, that's a good line.
Yeah.
Yeah. He sees the only one who cared that he died was Belle, who is interrupted from her grieving by Dr. Lambert, who is overjoyed that Scrooge can no longer bleed them dry. Scrooge begs to know if the future can be changed, or is he past all hope? Then suddenly he is wrapped in change like Marley, and Nicolas Cage temporarily rejoins the film for 20 seconds. Marley tells him he has no time to waste, breaks his chain, and Scrooge wakes up back in his bed in the present. He's overjoyed to be alive and immediately embraces his mice friends who gave him the plague, and he dies a week later. The end. No, wait. He celebrates being alive by yelling out the window to a boy making a snowman in the middle of the street since cars didn't exist yet. The boy says it's Christmas Day, and Scrooge says it all must have been just a bad dream, so he's stoked he can go back to being a scumbag. Suddenly, he sees the ghost chain around his waist in the mirror and decides, nah, better try to be somewhat decent person. I guess that's what that means.
I thought he's like immediately rude to that little kid. After he learned nothing. I'm just telling you, he's going back to being a piece of shit.
I'm sure he'll change. He yells at the boy again to buy a goose and to deliver it to Bob Cratchit while tossing money down to him. I know how to mend my ways. You there, dissolute child, take my money and run an errand for me since you obviously have nothing better to do on Christmas. Sure, I could do it myself, but why not the servant class do it for me?
He's trying.
He's trying. Baby steps.
Baby steps.
Anyways, the kid steals his money and takes off. Wait, no, this is a Dickens story. So the kid does exactly as he's asked and tells him to have a happy Christmas. Scrooge practices saying Merry Christmas in the mirror like a robot learning how to blend in with the humans. Or like one of the characters from the old way. Wah, wah, Merry Christmas. The mice drag the letter over to the edge of the bed and Scrooge finally reads it. He promises not to let Belle down, then gives the mice a cake and a block of cheese. He just leaves 2 filthy street rats to make a huge mess on his bed while he's away.
Just imagine just little droplets of shit all over the bed. All the food is strewn all over the place. Cake is melting all over the sheets. So wholesome.
Outside, he tells everyone on the street Merry Christmas, buys some oranges that he gives to a couple of kids some guy has slung in a sack over his shoulder since he presumably just stole them to eat for Christmas since poverty is so horribly rampant.
What the hell was that?
Just imagine him eating those children.
They're his own kids. He was taking them to market to sell.
I'll get 5 shillings for these.
He spots the first 2 ghosts who slip him some acid for a second before returning to normal and cries at the sound of some Christmas carolers singing. He sees a vision of old Joe and his goons laughing about taking people's stuff on Christmas. So he decides to go make things right. Suddenly we cut to Belle singing a song about what could have been if Scrooge hadn't turned out to be a money-grubbing scumbag. During the song, we see Belle cry in the empty hospital while Scrooge fires old Joe and gives the money he got from him to the old beggar he pushed out of the way earlier. Scrooge walks home that night and Belle is waiting for him outside his front door. She yells at him for having his men come and take all of the items from the hospital, and he says he's sorry he was too late. Wait, what happened to the kids?
Yeah, they were in the sack.
Wait, were they the ones in the sack? Or did old Joe eat them? I mean, it would explain why he's so fat.
He's been eating children.
I think I mean, that happened to my wife's great-great-grandfather. Somebody on her. No, he was sold into indentured servitude from England and ended up going over to Canada as a child because you could just sell your kids back then if you didn't have enough money. So that's what
you could still do that now.
Yeah, well, there aren't official channels to do it now.
You couldn't just put them out on the fucking steps now, but you could back then. Like I feel like there was a Great Depression picture of somebody like trying to sell their kids on the stoop.
Yeah.
Good times. We might be returning to those times.
Scrooge says he'd do anything to change the terrible things he's done, and he laments that he has so much money and a good profitable business, but he'd be rid of it all if he could change things. He says he wasted his life, and she says he can still change things by helping people. He says he will do everything he can, and we cut to Dr. Lambert getting out of jail. Bob Cratchit arrives at the office late, and Scrooge pretends to be mad at him while two mice sit on his shoulder like that's a normal thing people do. Then
So,
Scrooge...
you know you have two mice on your shoulder.
Don't mind them.
These are my only friends.
Listen here, governor. Then Scrooge quadruples his salary and gives him his own office while saying Happy Christmas, Bob.
I just love the way. Happy Christmas, Bob. So weird.
Never called him Bob before.
No.
Or said Happy Christmas.
He gives Cratchit Marley's old office and promises to help his family in every way he can. We hear Dickens narrating like at the beginning of the film while saying that Scrooge was better than his word. He says Ebenezer kept Christmas in his heart from then on, and we see Tiny Tim dancing in the street with Belle. Dickens says Scrooge was like a second father to Tim, and we cut back to non-cartoon world where the cartoon mice turn back into creepy CGI monstrosities. Jesus, I wouldn't go that far, but yeah, they are pretty awful looking. Dickens says that's the story of A Christmas Carol, although with 5,000% more mice this time around. The crowd erupts in applause, and the creepy mice give each other a little kiss. The end.
Christmas time is here again, and believe it or not, you don't have to spend it watching a boring retelling of a story from the 1840s like we did. Instead, hop over to entertainmentearth.com to pick up the latest and greatest toys this holiday season. They have just about anything you can think of over there, including this Jamiroquai action figure, just in case you wanted to recreate the video for Virtual Insanity. I know. That video was from 1996, you old bastard. Do you have anything from this century? How about Stranger Things action figures? Baby Yoda from Mandalorian? Awesome Lego sets? Or the latest and greatest from Marvel and DC? Whatever you're into, you can find it over at Entertainment Earth. And don't forget to enter our coupon code CAGEPOD to get an extra 10% off all in-stock items.
What's the final tally?
We'll go straight into the trackers. I figure we'll just skip the curse tracker.
Oh, man, but I was going to say, I was really surprised that when he said, hey, cunt, mind your fucking ways.
He said it like 8 times. Too.
Yeah, I didn't really
get it.
expect it to happen in this movie, but he
You
did.
got to remember, this is an English film. That word means something different over there.
Yeah, I mean, he has like 12 lines, and half of them were swearing. It's crazy.
Half of them were the word cunt for some reason. I don't know.
No, there's no curses.
Runtime, this was we just broke the record for shortest film, and this breaks that record. So 77 minutes for this thing, mercifully. I don't know if that includes the live action scenes, which are only like 2 minutes. So yeah, 77 minutes is the shortest thing we've ever done by 9 minutes. Mom and Dad previously 86 minutes. And Dark, I guess, if you include that, which they just cut the third act completely out in that movie. That movie. Nudity, I will skip. State and Country Tracker, this was the, I mean, I don't know how to do this with these animated things, but like we went to London, we went to England, so technically this is our second.
I guess we'll just still include it as if it were live action.
Yeah,
I guess.
I mean, it's about as real as any other fictional movie
Yeah.
in live action, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Budget versus gross, $7.8 million budget. Which is a lot, but you know, I guess you got to pay Kate Winslet, you got to pay Nick Cage, you got to pay Simon Callow, you got to pay Michael Gambon.
Yeah.
You have to pay thousands of animators. I don't know if you guys saw how many animators were involved in this thing, and they even like in the behind the scenes, they were like some of the stuff we were actually able to do with computers this time around, rather than animate every single frame, but almost everything was hand drawn. So it's just this huge list of people who worked on the movie that nobody has ever watched. Well, $266,000.
I would bet
worth of
the
people.
entire list of animators didn't even make $500,000 worth of the
Yeah,
budget.
probably
for that
not.
film.
Yeah.
Because they probably just outsourced it to whatever third world animation studios they could find.
This is 2001 England. I feel like they paid people, but not much. I'm sure probably $30,000 each for a whole year of work. This piece of crap. Why did you make all of the characters look exactly the same? I don't know. I just reused the same face. I get paid enough for this.
Yeah, they weren't paying them enough.
Anyway, $7.8 million budget, made $266,475. That brings our grand total up to $1.279.5 billion budget versus $2.870 billion gross. On our list of top grossing films, believe it or not even close to the bottom, because we have films like Dying Light, Dog Eat Dog, Prisoners of the Ghostland, The Old Way, Arsenal, movies like that. Just ran circles around those. But I would expect that this movie was expected to do much better than it did. I mean, like just the mere the fact that Kate Winslet had a song that was charting on their charts over there would be like morbid curiosity to go see the film, but I guess not. I guess nobody wanted to see it. $266,475. Ratings, surprisingly, this was not a G-rated film. This was a PG-rated film. I was expecting us to get our first G, but no, this is PG. I'm guessing it's the weird psychedelic imagery, creepiness.
Scary imagery.
Yeah, the like Grim Reaper ghost, scary. There's talk
makes
of
sense.
death and pouring water on little boys who are gonna die, and
And I guess saying
a bunch
cunt
of rats
8
and
times
shit. Yeah, he said
probably
cunt
adds
a
to
lot,
that.
so yeah. Anyways, that's our fourth PG film, behind I think the two National Treasures and what was the other one? Was it Family Man?
I think
Might have been
so.
Family Man. Yeah, which was right around the same time. So I guess he got in the Christmas spirit there for a minute. That leads us over to the Cage Kill Tracker. I don't know if you want to count Tiny Tim, but
Well, in one universe, he killed Tiny Tim. So no, just joking. 0 kills, and then he was dead
He was
before
already dead.
the story starts. So do we count that as a death?
no.
Nah.
Do we count it as a resurrection?
I thought of that. It's like sort of.
No,
He doesn't get revived. He's still a ghost.
Yeah, I know
He's still
goes.
dead.
So we're still 0-0 on the kills and deaths. So
Yeah. I think if he shows up as a ghost, we can't count the death because he didn't die on screen.
he didn't die on screen. Yeah, I think he has to die on screen for it to count.
Yeah.
So we're still at 181 kills and 11 deaths, and then maybe
2
a
resurrections?
resurrection. So that would be like 3. That would bring it to 3.
Nah, I don't think we can count that
No,
either.
no, I don't.
It's like we have to see him die and then come back.
Yeah,
in order
exactly,
For the
yeah.
resurrection.
And I don't know
count.
if does a ghost count as a resurrection. I don't think so. I think it has to be living form again, right?
Yeah.
I think the argument could be made if we were watching a movie and he died on screen and then we saw him help somebody as a ghost, that he got resurrected.
I don't know. I guess, yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll cross that bridge if we.
if we ever get to it.
Where does this meh mound of mediocrity land? Let's rank this film on the Cageometer.
All right, that leads us to the most important question of the episode about this movie that nobody has ever seen, nor will they watch our episode about this movie because who's like diving in to watch us talk about Christmas Carol for an hour and a half? Anyways, Vince, where does Christmas Carol the movie from 2001 rate on your Cageometer?
In the spirit of Christmas, I'm not going to be too harsh. So instead of a 1, I'm going to give it a 2. I think telling this story is difficult because it's been done so well in other films and TV specials that you really have to bring your A game to do it justice. And they did not. All the characters look the same. They added the stupid mice. We didn't need that. It's just, it was. I love this. Like, I love A Christmas Carol. I love the Muppet version. Yeah, I think it's just like nostalgic from a kid, like watching it as a kid. Like the Muppet version, the Flintstone version, Scrooge. I love when they do different takes on it and try to bring it into a more modern adult. Like Scrooge was a great telling of it. And Dickens is one of my favorite authors of all time. But man, they didn't bring anything to this fucking film. It was so fucking boring. So boring. The animation was awful. The voice acting was okay. I don't think anybody knocked it out of the fucking park. It was just so. I could have lived with never seeing this film. And the fact that Nick Cage is only in it for like 2 minutes, if even that, it just there wasn't anything interesting about this film.
Yeah, he knocked out his lines before lunch.
Yeah.
For Cage's performance,
He probably doesn't even remember it.
I don't even know what to rate it because it was so small.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll just give it a 5 because it didn't add anything to the movie. It didn't subtract anything from the movie. And that's not a knock on him. I mean, they cast him to play the shortest character in the whole story. So yeah, I mean that's all I can say about Cage. It's a 5. It was okay. I'm glad he didn't do an accent because I think that would have definitely made it a 1 or 2. Because we've heard his English accent, it's not very good. So I'll just give him a 5. He didn't draw me. You know, I thought he delivered the lines very well. Nothing memorable about the performance though. So
Yeah.
a 2 and a 5.
I did not expect you to line up exactly with my rating. That leads us over to Nigel. Nigel, where does Christmas Carol rate on your Cageometer?
Humbug. We can't say anything else that hasn't been said. It's a 2 for me as well for basically all the same reasons. It's not. It's a terrible retelling of A Christmas Story or A Christmas Carol. God, I keep doing that. A Christmas Carol. All of the good aspects of it just come from Charles Dickens' story. So it's a good story. It's timeless. It has a good message to it, and that kind of comes through in the movie. But the movie itself doesn't do anything to deliver that. The animation's poor. The acting, you couldn't even I was reading the credits afterwards. I was like, "That's who played that. That's who that was." I can't even tell that any of the actors are who they are. You know, the guy who played Scrooge was pretty good. Like his
Simon Callow.
Yeah, Simon Cowell, which is his stage actor and theater actor and movie actor. But it's like it felt like a lot of them weren't voice actors, so they were kind of unfamiliar with it. And the animation's poor. Like we said, everybody looks the same. It's so dull and boring. The mice add nothing and just detract from everything. And there are much better adaptations of A Christmas Carol. You can watch pretty much any of them and have a better experience of this. So, yeah, I feel bad because I could tell a lot of people worked on this. Like we said, all those animators and stuff, but it was it is not worth watching. No. Cage is the same thing. I don't know what to give him. Like he can't. He didn't have anything to work with, so I was like, I'll just put him at a 5 as well because I don't know what to, I don't know what to do. He could have swapped him with anybody else, but like he didn't do bad with what he did. He was just there for 2 minutes and just like we said, delivered a dozen lines, and it was ghostly Marley. Like I don't know. I can't really say it's bad performance. I mean, I guess you could because he didn't try an accent, but it would have been awful with it. But that's not his fault. They cast him to play it. So he's like the only non-English British person in the cast for some reason.
I just wonder if he was in Britain and they were like, "Oh, Cage is down the street. Maybe we could see if we can have him read for 20 minutes."
Yeah, or like he knew somebody in the director, something.
I don't know, man. It's confusing.
I think they may have just needed some star power, some American star, because he's front and center in the opening credits starring Nicolas Cage. Like They
I
needed
could
to get
totally
something.
see it being like, man, we really need to add some star power to this. Who could we get for like 2 hours of work? Cage.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
get Cage. Oh, he'll only do it for $1 million? Oh. All right. Well, we need somebody in the credits.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean it's fine. It's not even a Cage movie. It's
No.
just he happens to be in it, and we had to watch it because of it.
We have to, unfortunately,
Yeah.
watch all of these at some point.
But yeah, it's only a 2. It's not a 1 because it's a Christmas Carol, and you can still glean some kind of moral out of it. But
Yeah.
that has nothing to do with the production of the movie.
Yeah. On my Cageometer, I gave it the same thing, 2, for the same reasons. Like, there are so many better adaptations of this. I'm just like, why did you even make this? Like, it obviously took a lot of work to make this thing, and you are just making a version that's like not any more interesting or better than any other version out there. Like, you didn't even try to make it something new and unique. Maybe they were trying to make it more kid friendly or something. But like in a world where the Muppets Christmas Carol had been out for 10 years, like why would you make this thing? I don't even understand why it exists. There are 10,000 Christmas Carol adaptations, and this is one of the worst ones. Easily the worst one I've ever seen. And like I mean, Tiny Toons did this better than fucking they did, you know? It's like you said, just as drab and ugly and boring. So boring. The characters all look the same. The color scheme is just nasty. I guess it was supposed to be, you know, London and back in the 1840s, drab, old, dreary England. I don't really understand why they felt the need to make this thing in the first place. So 2s across the board, which seems harsh for a kids movie, but it's like, I feel like we have a pretty good sense of like good and bad, even when it comes to a kids movie. I wouldn't show this to my kid. I'd be like, ugh, don't watch that creepy, weird thing. So stupid mice aren't even interesting in that. Like, you're just like, the only thing that's supposed to be interesting in this thing is those mice for children. And even that is just like, what? Like, something interesting is happening on screen, and we just cut to these damn mice, like, making weird arm movements in his pocket. It's just not good. For Cage, I got the same thing, 5. I don't know what to give him because he has no lines, didn't do a British accent, didn't even attempt it, which I guess is a good thing based on the accents we've seen him do. I mean, I feel like we can't really be better or harsher than that because he's got like 10 lines. Mend your ways. That's all you can really like glean from his performance, which I guess is good. He achieved what his character was meant to achieve. I don't understand why you would cast Nicolas Cage in this role other than we need a name for the credits. We don't want to have to pay him too much. We can get him to come in for one day of work, record his lines, probably, like I said, before lunch.
Yeah.
And that's that, you know. I mean, hopefully, like, most of the money went to the animators and not to Nick Cage, but I feel like probably just to get his name in the credits, it cost him at least $1 million of that 7.8 million.
Agents negotiate where people's names appear in the credits, and his was the very first one in there. So I'm guessing he was the most paid person on this entire production.
Yeah, because even though Kate Winslet was huge at the time, she still wasn't making as much as a lot of her male counterparts.
Yeah. And based on the fact that this was hand drawn, this might have been recorded before Titanic.
You know, that's a good point. That's actually a really good point.
Could have been recorded in like 97 or something. Didn't come out till 2001. I don't know. I definitely don't recommend this film. It's not a worthwhile watch in the slightest, even if you're interested in seeing what Cage did in it. Maybe just go look and see
YouTube
if there's just the Cage version or the Cage pieces on YouTube or something.
If that doesn't exist, we'll put it up there.
Yeah. We have one cagey moment. That is his entire scene.
Yeah, I didn't even pull cagey moments for this movie at all.
There aren't any.
There aren't
none.
any.
Yeah.
There's nothing. I can't put anything in there. So it's big empty space for that.
I mean, you can include "Mend Your Ways" as
Yeah,
like
that's
the quote of the
film. So,
Yeah,
you know.
that's it.
That's it for this episode of One Cage at a Time. As always, be sure to drop us an email at onecagepodcast@gmail.com to let us know if we missed anything, or hit us up with suggestions to improve the show, comments, compliments, or simply to gush about the legend that is Jacob Marley. For a second. Next up will be our Season 3 finale. It's crazy to think that we're almost through another batch, but here we are. We're going out strong, though, with one of my all-time favorite films. Not just Cage films, but films, period. Adaptation. Nick plays screenwriter Charlie Kaufman and his twin brother Donald. That's right, double dose of Cage. Charlie's life goes from pathetic to bizarre in this hilarious, genre-bending, surreal story where you're never really sure if we're watching a movie, a guy writing about a book, or actually inside of the book from 1 minute to the next. It's crazy, man. Cage is absolutely amazing in this film and was robbed of his second Oscar by Adrian Brody for The Pianist. Like, come on, man.
I'm just
How
gonna
many
say
Nazi
right now,
stories do we need?
That movie was awful. Just awful.
Cage plays two characters in this film, and both are believable as separate people. I mean, he's amazing in this movie, and it's so not Cage. Like he's so he just transforms into this Charlie Kaufman, fictionalized version of the real person Charlie Kaufman.
Yeah.
Who's the guy who wrote Adaptation.
It really does kind of validate his opinion, but him talking about how Hollywood doesn't like him.
Yeah, I
like they
100%
really don't root
think,
for him.
Yeah, this movie he is brilliant in, and I will stand by that. He is incredible. It got 4 Oscar nominations, including Streep got nominated for Best Supporting Actress, Chris Cooper for Best Supporting Actor, Cage for Best Actor, and it got a Best Screenplay nomination. The only one it won, though, was Chris Cooper for Best Supporting Actor, which he is good in it.
Yeah.
He's great. Chris Cooper's great and everything, but like Cage should have won. I mean, I've seen The Pianist, and Adrian Brody is great in that, but I just don't know if it's like he played.
I don't know.
We'll
I
get
don't
to
think that movie's as good as people say it is. I think it's a good movie, but I think that it got that stupid hype that those types of films always get with Hollywood, where they just their heads so far up their ass that they just jerk themselves off to films like that. And I really felt like, I thought Cage got robbed, but I mean, it's just
another
Hollywood.
I'm looking. How many more of those do we need?
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it though, because I watched Adaptation in college 15 years ago now, something like that, or more. And it was the first movie I watched that I actually liked Nicolas Cage in, and maybe realized that he was a good actor.
Yeah.
Because I'd only seen schlock from that point. At that point, so I'm looking forward to revisiting this one because I don't really remember much of it other than it was great.
I don't remember much of it either.
It's kind of a little masterpiece, and I feel like this really shows Cage's range.
Yeah.
I feel like I would put this movie and Pig on the same level as like.
I was thinking the
these are
same thing.
2 of the best performances of his career. He's absolutely brilliant in this movie.
He melts into the characters in both of these movies. That's the one thing I remember about this movie is I don't remember it being Nicolas Cage when I think back on it.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
he just disappears into that character.
And Rob
those
from
characters.
Pig and Charlie and Donald from Adaptation could not be more different characters.
Oh, God.
Like, so completely different. But he transformed into both of those people, or all three of those people.
All three of them, yeah. I'm excited to revisit this film.
Yeah, this is a great one to go out on. Anyways, make sure to check it out wherever fine films are sold or on your streaming service of choice. Until then, we'll say goodbye the way we do each and every episode with one of the 3 lines that Nicolas Cage had in the film.
Bend your ways.
Marley!
Thanks for listening to One Cage at a Time. Visit us online at onecageatatime.com or follow us on the social media platform of your choice for more Nicolas Cage goodness. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and if you really like the show, become a member of our Patreon where you can download unedited and ad-free episodes as well as listen to our follow-up show, Back Into the Cage, where we re-examine each movie to discuss what we missed the first time around, answer listener questions, and wax poetic about the man, the myth, the legend that is Nicolas Cage.
Others, we cannot afford to waste precious time. I have so much to show you. Touch my robe.